Hi students, today's date is March 6, 2022. Welcome to Vijeta IAS Academy Current Affairs class. We have segregated important news items from the Hindu newspaper and Indian Express, and we organized these news items paper wise. In mains GS, we have GS 1, 2, 3, 4. Here the news items are also organized in GS paper wise. Here, as you know, for many days Russia and Ukraine conflict is going on. In GS paper 1, you have to see with respect to geography. Here you have to identify the location of Ukraine and what are the neighboring countries of Ukraine, and also physical geography of Ukraine and neighboring regions. These are the some of the areas which you need to identify. If we see the physical geography of Ukraine, and it is located in this part of Europe, and here one of the longest river Dnieper is passing through Ukraine. This is very important in this context because the capital of Ukraine is located on this particular river. Here it is one of the longest rivers and it is fourth longest river. The other long rivers are Volga river, Danube river and Ural rivers. This is how you have to identify. Ural river is located here, Volga river and Danube river. These are important rivers. Then you identify some of the physical features of Europe like Ural mountains located here, Caucasus mountain here, and here Alps are located, and most of the eastern part of Europe is now plains, East European plain. With respect to sea also, water bodies, Black Sea, Sea of Azov, Caspian Sea located, and Baltic Sea. You just try to identify what are various physical features neighboring Ukraine. These are important for prelims point of view, and you can use in mains also, and you can remember some of the important physical features of Europe which are required for mains examination also. This is political map of Europe. Previously we have seen physical map of Europe. That is how you have to see with respect to GS1 with the same news, and you should be able to see how the news item can be used in GS paper 1 and 2, 3, 4 likewise. With respect to GS2, in Indian Express there is a news. It is related to education. In education related syllabus item is issues relating to development and management of social sector services related to education. In that context, you can use this particular news item as an example. Here the news is talking about University Grants Commission and also some guidelines regarding multidisciplinary higher education. Here the term higher education, now you have to see the condition of higher education in India and the global ranking of Indian higher education at world level. At present, Indian higher education system is not as highly standard as comparing with world level institutions. In that context, now efforts are going on to make higher education more relevant for the 21st century, and also different type of syllabus or different methods how to improve the education quality in higher education. Some kind of steps are going on. In that context, National Education Policy 2020 also is now under consideration. Here the news is about University Grants Commission. Whenever there is a body in news, always try to identify whether it is a constitutional body or a statutory body or executive body. Here University Grants Commission is a statutory body founded in 1953. The main purpose of this body is to determine the standard of higher education and maintain the standard of education. It recognizes the higher education universities also, disperse funds also for such recognized universities. If the education system is riddled with some kind of fake universities, it identifies and take the action. These are some of the functions of University Grants Commission. Here, this has formulated certain guidelines in this particular news item. To encourage growth of multidisciplinary higher education institutions offering a diverse range of subjects, it is bringing certain guidelines like a student can take multiple degrees in the same duration from different universities. For example, here this concept is dual degree. Here, just to give an example, dual degree from IIT Delhi and Jawaharlal Nehru University will become a distinct possibility. If this guideline properly comes executed, a student can take degree from IIT Delhi and the same time he can take a degree in other subject from Jawaharlal Nehru University. Once admitted, students will be able to complete the first degree at the host institution and the second degree at the partnering institution without going through the admission process again. For example, JNU and IIT Delhi have separate sets of intrinsic strengths. If student is pursuing BTech from IIT and want to study history in his master's JNU, they should be able to do so without going through a separate admission process. Further, the two institutions needed to collaborate. If the two institutions collaborate, then it becomes easy for students to get multidisciplinary or dual degrees from different streams and different organizations. It saves the time. Within same 4 years or 3 years time period, students will get different degrees also, and also the quality of education improves and the skills that are required for 21st century also can be enhanced without going through process once again for a long number of years. So within short period of time, students can get a large number of skills. This is the intention of this guideline. You can use this as an example of how to improve higher education system in India when there is a question related to higher education and international ranking. Higher education institutions losing out in old rankings due to single stream nature. This is one of the reasons students had to wait till one degree completes then to take the next degree. This will ensure that colleges with poor enrollment, and this has another advantage also. One is student wise, student will get good skills within same amount of time period. And also there is another advantage. Some colleges are having poor enrollment and fewer resources can offer multidisciplinary programs, can have access to better facilities for the benefit of all. For example, some streams students do not take or opt for it. If these studies or these colleges have tie up with other colleges which are having high enrollment, side by side, many colleges also will become operational. This is one of the other advantage of this particular guideline. University Grants Commission, here for a prelims point of view, you have to see whether it's statutory body or constitutional body. Here UGC is statutory body. With respect to mains, how these guidelines will help or improve the education quality in higher education sector. This is the way you have to see in a particular news item. Next, in GS2 itself, it is related to international. Here the item, it is about refugee movement. Now Ukraine, that war is creating refugee crisis in Europe. Important international institutions, agencies and fora, their structure and mandate. In GS2, under this syllabus, this news can be categorized. Here this news is about United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. This is a United Nations body created in 1950 and headquarters Geneva. You have to remember these particular facts with respect to prelims. Now news is about this refugee crisis is intensifying due to conflict. People are moving to neighboring countries. Here many people are particularly moving towards Poland, neighboring country. Into Belarus they cannot go because Russia and Belarus is ally of Russia. Now Russia is attacking Ukraine from Belarus from this side. So they cannot go to Belarus. Other areas they are moving. Mostly they are going to Poland. This news is particularly highlighting about Moldova, because Moldova is one of the poorest countries in European continent and the population is also hardly 2.5 lakh people. Already 2 lakh refugees entered into Moldova territory. This is creating further troubles for Moldova society and Moldova social health systems. This is why High Commissioner is particularly warning about Moldova country. Here once again, you have to see the Ukraine and the neighboring countries geography wise. Now if you know the geography, it becomes easy to compare or to see where Moldova is located, why Moldova is affected with refugee crisis. Now the Ukraine crisis now exported to other countries. This is how, if there is any war, it will have consequences like this. Here High Commissioner for Refugees is saying, Russia's war in Ukraine has caused the fastest moving flow of refugees in world. In Europe since end of World War II, the head of United Nations Refugee Agency. In 10 days since the war began, at least 12 lakh people in Ukraine have fled to neighboring countries. This shows the gravity of this crisis. That movement of mostly women and children, here this is what important, women and children is coming at a faster rate than the relocation of people at the height of Balkan wars in 1990s and far faster than one during Hungary refugee crisis in 1956. Here two things, refugee crisis and Hungary refugee crisis that took place in 1956. Similar kind of development took place in 1956. Here this is Hungary. Here during that time this part was under communist regime, part of Soviet regime, control and under the control of Russian government, but due to growing disparities within the system and the people demanded more democratic political system and freedom from Soviet oppression, thousands were killed and wounded and nearly 250,000 Hungarians fled the country. Since 1956 refugee crisis, United Nations High Commissioner is comparing the present refugee crisis with the Hungarian refugee crisis in 1956. Way back in 1956, it was the period of Cold War. Communist countries on one hand and capitalist countries on one hand, they were ideologically fighting. During this crisis, during this particular time period, always tensions used to take place in such countries. Hungary is one example. Vietnam War also took place on account of this. So likewise, in different parts of the world, this Cold War had its impact. Hungarian refugee crisis also developed during 1956. Now presently, the present Ukraine refugee crisis is being compared with Hungarian uprising or Hungary refugee crisis. Here you can remember this, and also you can quote with respect to refugee crisis, you can use this as an example in your mains answer. Particularly it is talking about Moldova. Poland has taken the largest number of Ukrainians but was particularly concerned about Moldova as it is a very small country. Since February, more than 2 lakh people coming from Ukraine have entered Moldova, which has an official population of 2.6 million. So this shows that this 26 lakh people, very small amount of people. Now already 22 lakh people already entered into Moldova. This is why it is causing concern. Sorry, previously I said 2 lakh people. It is about 2.6 million. That is 26 lakh people. And is one of Europe's poorest countries. This is very important. Europe's poorest, one of the poorest countries, and it is also not a part of European Union. Because if it is not a part of European Union cannot help Moldova openly. It lacks significant institutional support also. It needs profound help to absorb newcomers into education, health and social service systems. It will become a lot of burden on Moldova. Now other countries, now instead of Ukraine, other countries should help Ukraine also. Now they should help these countries as well. European, in one positive aspect, he is trying to convince that in 2015 also there was a refugee crisis due to war in Syria and Afghanistan. But that time European Union was not that open as it is today. Today European Union 27 members unanimously agreed to automatically give Ukraine refugees the right to live and work within the bloc for up to 3 years. Today they are open. They are openly allowing Ukraine refugees into their countries. However, in 2015 they did not do so. This organization or the head of this organization is praising the lessons learned from 2015 by European Union. This is about that particular news. It is related to GS2, international relations, and how refugee. There is a news like the syllabus is important institutions at international level. In this particular news item, United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees is the organization and how it handles refugee crisis. In that context, you can use these contents. Next item is related to government reassures students stuck in Ukraine Sumy. Our Indian students are there in Ukraine. Now India is putting efforts to bring back Indians safely to home. Here this news can be part of effect of policies and politics of developed countries and developing countries on India's interests and Indian diaspora. You can directly link this particular issue to this syllabus item. Here the news is the government of India said it was deeply concerned about the students trapped in Sumy. Sumy is the place where this is the location located. In this location, students are struck. Now, India government is putting efforts to bring them back. India is in talks with two countries for a safe corridor for them. However, in between, Indians threatened to march towards the border carrying the Indian flag despite heavy bombing on the city. Already 10 days are over. Indians are expecting help from Indian authorities. Now, Indians are growing impatient because it is war zone. Every hour is important. Now, they want to escape from this particular situation at any cost. They plan to cross or reach the border by carrying Indian flag, but Indian government is saying do not do that. We are working to bring you back home, and we are talking with both countries, Ukraine and Russia, to bring back home safely. Otherwise it will create very difficult situation because heavy bombing is going on in the city. Have strongly pressed Russian and Ukraine governments through multiple channels for an immediate ceasefire to create a safe corridor for our students. Our Ministry of External Affairs Ministry tweeted, and government is saying that working very hard. So do not come openly because heavy bombings are going on. As of now, you stay safe in bunkers. So these are the images you can see. India say stay inside shelters and avoid unnecessary risks. In a separate statement, Indian embassy in Kyiv also, our embassy will leave no stone unturned to ensure safe evacuation and requested the stranded students to have some more patience. Nearly 6 lakh plus students at Sumy State University have spent last 10 days holed up in bunkers at their hostel as the city located on Ukraine's border with Russia continues to witness bombing because it is a border area. Russia attacking Ukraine because it is a border area. Heavy bombings are going on in this particular region. Indians, the now situation from Indians, we are afraid and we cannot wait anymore. We are risking our lives. We are moving towards border. If anything happens to us, all the responsibility will be of the government and the Indian embassy, the students stated. Here you can see, you can use this as a case study also in GS4 also you can use it. Suppose if you are an official in Indian embassy or if you are an Indian foreign service officer, how you convince Indians in such crisis, that you can use as a case study also, and you can think about this particular situation. So it's a difficult situation for Indian authorities also, it's a challenging one, and for Indians also who went there for medical education, it's a challenging crisis. How we have to handle this particular crisis because of growing tensions between two sides, one is Russia, another one is western side, and India needs help from both. So how to handle this particular crisis? That is about that particular news. Next news, it is related to international. Putin warns against imposing any no-fly zone over Ukraine. Here it is like effect of policies of developed and developing countries on India's interests and Indian diaspora. Previous news talking about Indian diaspora, Indian interest. In this case now no-fly zone over Ukraine. Here Mr. Putin is warning, if any country applies no-fly zone, then it is like joining hands with Ukraine, and now they become enemies of Russia, and it is like they are directly in war with Russia. Russia also will respond to that. This is the warning Mr. Putin is giving if anyone wants to declare no-fly zone over Ukraine. Now you can see how the situation is growing from one stage to the other stage. You can track, it is very easy to conquer a country but very difficult to consolidate it. Now it will have effects now not only between two countries but entire world will suffer due to this war. Ukraine officials blamed Russian shelling for breaching ceasefire arranged in two cities to evacuate civilians. If there is no fly zone, no military aeroplanes, and civilians can be evacuated safely. But continuously shelling is going on. The struggle to enforce the ceasefire in particular strategic port town in southeast Ukraine, the eastern city, showed the fragility of efforts to stop fighting across Ukraine, as number of people fleeing the country reached 1.4 million. So different newspapers and different estimations, at least 10 lakh people now suffered. If there is no ceasefire, it becomes very difficult for civilians to go out of Ukraine safely. Mr. Putin accused on both sides, accusations are going on. Ukraine accuses Russia for shelling and not honoring the ceasefire agreement, and Mr. Putin on this side also accuses Ukraine for sabotaging the evacuation and even claimed its leadership was calling into question the future of country's statehood, saying if this happens it will be entirely on their conscience. Now the blame game between Russia and Ukraine will go on in the crossfire. Other innocent and other foreign nationals will get caught. Russian Defense Ministry said it had agreed with Ukraine on evacuation routes out of these two cities. This sight of growing misery amid an ongoing assault that created desperate scenes at hospitals and raised the prospect of food and water shortage for hundreds of thousands of people in freezing weather. Weather condition also freezing. Now healthcare system is overburdened. Food shortage supply. So all these will now create chaotic situation in Ukraine. It affects millions of people. In comments carried on Ukraine television, Mariupol, it's a port city, said thousands of people had gathered for safe passage out of the city and buses were departing when shelling began. Now people are risking their lives to come out of Ukraine at any cost. On one hand, shelling bombings are going on. People are afraid of staying there, and despite shelling, they are trying to escape from the Ukraine. We value the life of every inhabitant of Mariupol and we cannot risk it, so we stop the evacuation, Ukraine officials are saying. So this is how the situation, if war begins, how it will affect common people. This example you can quote in case of international ethics related in GS4 also. In GS2 international relations, the effects of wars on common people. That is that news. Next news is about GS3, effects of liberalization on the economy. Here again it is related to war. Now it is affecting on every sector. Here IMF is warning of serious global economic impact. This news you can cover as part of effects of liberalization on the economy. Here IMF executive board meeting took place on economic impact of the war. It is saying that should the conflict escalate, the economic damage would be all the more devastating. Now due to pandemic COVID-19, world economies suffered a lot. In recent times only, the world economy is improving and trying to cope with post-COVID normalcy. But once again, now new crisis is emerging. Now, like COVID also, COVID started in a small place in China. It affected entire global. It halted entire world for nearly 2 years. Now this crisis also started between two countries. Now we don't know how it affect the entire world. IMF is already giving warnings. Price stocks, price shocks will have an impact worldwide, especially on poor households for whom food and fuel are a higher proportion of expenses. Due to this conflict, already oil prices are growing. Previously, it was below $100 a barrel. Now it is nearly reaching $120 a barrel. Now this oil price will affect food prices also, transportation prices also, and various other essential commodities. These essential commodities are very essential for poor people, and most of the expenses of poor people goes for buying food and oil related products. Now if this increases, now it will diminish the savings of poor households. It will lead to more poverty. It affects the employment also, it affects the poverty also, it affects the industries. Every sector of world economy, it is getting affected. Now as a result of economic crisis, it will have political consequences as well. If economic crisis continues for some time, people also will protest against the existing governments, and it will lead to law and order crisis. Not only in particular one country or two countries, but entire world will see, because now entire world is affected. One country economy will affect the other country's economy also. That is why this news is as part of effects of liberalization on the economy. If there is a negative impact of any particular development in any part of the world, how it affects the other economies as well. And in that context, once again, people may become inward looking. They will not encourage liberalization. They will not encourage globalization also. Now already these trends are going. Even India also trying to safeguard from such kind of shocks by encouraging Make in India and also self-reliant Atmanirbhar Bharat. Even American president also saying to their people that make in America, and whatever you want to do, you do in America only. Do not depend on supplies from other countries. So this kind of trend will increase due to such kind of crisis. Already COVID-19 has proved that now countries are very cautious about the liberalization and globalization. Now if this crisis continues for some time now it will reduce it will affect the entire thought process of interconnectedness of entire globe. Impact on Ukraine. In Ukraine, the economic damage is already substantial. IMF is saying that in Ukraine particularly, economic damage is already substantial. Infrastructure shut down, already government buildings are shut down, property is damaged, face significant recovery and reconstruction costs. To recover, to rebuild again, it requires a lot of resources. Now already proper infrastructure was in place. Now this infrastructure got damaged. To recover once again, it requires a lot of funds from IMF and other countries. Whatever the progress is going on for health sector, education sector, social services sector, now it has to be diverted to this unnecessary damage to rebuild Ukraine once again. Financial assistance requested by Ukraine already reported on 25th amounted to 1.4 billion. Because it is IMF, International Monetary Fund, the purpose is to provide financial assistance to the countries which are required. Now it will affect the finances of International Monetary Fund also. Here you can see the kind of damage that took place due to this war. You can see these images. And on Russia also, it affects the Russian economy also, Russian sanctions. Sanctions on Russia will have substantial impact on global economy and financial markets, with significant spillovers to other countries. Scarcity and supply disruptions could be sharp for countries with close economic ties with Ukraine and Russia. Immediately, whoever is having direct relations with Ukraine and Russia, for example, Russia exports oil and gas to many European countries. Russia and Ukraine do business with European countries, and Russia and many Central Asian republics also depending on Russia's economy. Now, sanctions on Russia will affect Russia's economy. It will have spillover effects on Central Asian republics. On Central Asian republics, now it will have impact on India as well. India, China, and all the countries which are doing business with these countries will have impact. Entire economic system now is going to collapse due to this particular crisis. Moldova, which borders Ukraine, asked for augmentation and rephasing of its existing IMF supported program to help meet the cost of current crisis. Now Moldova, a small country, neighboring country of Ukraine, it is now filled with refugees. Now it requires additional funds to support these refugees. Now you can see how it will have impacts. Now you can think, if a war happens, in what ways it is going to affect it. War means people lives and property is getting damaged. Now as international economy is now interlinked due to globalization and liberalization, the economies of the world are integrated with many countries, and this crisis now affects every part of the globe. This is how you can use this particular example as part of effects of liberalization and globalization on Indian economy or world economy. So that is that particular news item. Now next one related to GS3. Here it is the news here is about CCI, Competition Commission of India. Here this particular news you can use as part of Indian economy and issues relating to planning, mobilization of resources, growth, development and employment, because it is related to the competition in the market or e-commerce business. E-commerce business do have impact on economic resource also. It will, if business grows, it will increase the state revenues. It will create lot of employment also. But if the competition is not fair, it will affect employment and other industries as well. As a result, overall economic growth will get hindered. And also because here it is one organization, CCI, in GS2 you can relate with statutory, regulatory and various quasi-judicial bodies. This part of the syllabus also now can be linked to this news item. Here this is related to Shopee. It is an MNC company. This MNC company, it is in news. Traders body complained to Competition Commission of India by saying that Shopee is manipulating its prices and affecting the e-commerce business. Here the purpose of Competition Commission of India, let us see, then we go to the news. Here is a statutory body. With respect to prelims, this factual part is important. Quasi-judicial body enforce the Act, Competition Act 2002. Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices Act, earlier it was there in 1969, because we followed mixed economy after independence. After independence, we allowed some during Cold War times. Socialist countries or communist countries, they followed communist type of economic policy, and the other side capitalist form of economic. Open trade or free trade or private sector, complete freedom to private sector is essential feature of capitalist economy. Whereas state governments or the country, the government will involve in the business. This is the feature of communist type of governance. In India, we followed both capitalist form also communist form or socialist form, where both public sector as well as private sector involved in the business activities. But due to give fair chance to all the parties in the economy, nobody should monopolize any particular sector. Indian government has passed a law that is called MRTP Act, Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices Act. But after 1991 liberalization, now more privatization took place, more private sector companies emerged, government started reducing its presence in business. That is why the concepts of disinvestments emerged. In public sector undertakings, the concept of disinvestment. Gradually, Indian government started moving away from business so that it give more chance to the private sector for business. Under this context, once again, if no private company also should monopolize the business, no unfair practices should be there in the market. In order to create fair practices in the market, Competition Act 2002 was passed. As part of this particular organization was created, Competition Commission of India. The purpose of this organization is to promote free enterprise, to promote market from distortions, to look after consumer welfare, to ensure fair competition. When there are multiple competitors for the same product, fair competition should be there. No unfair practices should be followed by any particular company so that it can monopolize the complete market. This is the purpose of Competition Commission of India. If any person is aggrieved of any particular situation, they can complain to CCI. In this case, news is saying about some people, they are saying Shopee is following these practices, they complain to CCI. Here the news is, what were the allegations of violations of competition norms against Shopee? It is first of all, Shopee is a Singaporean MNC company. It was founded in 2015, focused mainly on e-commerce. Here, General Secretary of Confederation of All India Traders, it is a body created in 1990, has submitted information to CCI claiming the company sells various products at extremely low prices. If a company sell its products extremely at low prices, it will create disadvantaged position for other competitors with the intention to eliminate competition for small retailers. This is the complaint. Now, in this complaint, it said, including flash sales products 1 rupee, 9 rupee, 49 rupees at such a low prices, it will ultimately kill the fellow competitor. This is the complaint against this particular organization. This MNC, now he also claimed Shopee had employed similar discounting practices as allegedly followed by Amazon and Flipkart. However, the Competition Commission of India said did not hold any significant market power, as it is relatively new entrant in a market with well-established players. Already some established players are there. Shopee is a very small company or new entrant. It do not have sufficient market power to monopolize the market. This is how it is. Competition Commission of India is saying that Shopee did not violate the norms because it do not have sufficient market power. Though allegation is that Shopee is following similar discounting practices as allegedly done by Amazon and Flipkart, it does not appear to the Commission that Shopee possesses significant market power. Experts have noted that establishing that a business is engaging in predatory pricing requires that enterprise be a dominant player in the relevant market, besides establishing that its goods or services are being marketed below cost and that some tactics are being used with intention to eliminate competition. If you have strong market power, if you follow the predatory pricing, it will kill the market. But in this case, Shopee did not have strong market power, so it is not against that particular practice. And this traders body is also this All India Traders Confederation. It also said that it is violating the FDI rules as well. According to this, it is saying that mandate prior government control or government permission is required if FDI comes to this company, but it did not inform the government, thereby it is violating the norms of FDI. And also, one of the investors in this company is part of Chinese company, because Indian government excluded list of 54 Chinese apps banned by Center last month. One of the organizations which is banned in 54 Chinese app companies also invested in Shopee. So it is saying that Shopee also should be banned from operations. So these are the allegations against Shopee, but Competition Commission of India saying that though it is following predatory pricing, it did not hold significant market power. So in this case, this particular issue is not going to create any unfair advantage to the other competitors. This is how CCI is saying with respect to Shopee. These are the important news items. We tried to cover different two newspapers, the Hindu and Indian Express, and also organized based on mains syllabus by GS 1, 2, 3 likewise. I hope it is helpful to you. Tomorrow we will come up with tomorrow's news items. Thank you.